Afternoon, is it afternoon? Yeah, afternoon everyone. Welcome to our panel, Cross-Continental Collaborations, Promoting African Storytelling through South Africa, Jamaica, and Canada. So the purpose of this panel is to unpack what opportunities lie, what opportunities exist for South Africans, for Jamaicans, and for Canadians. Because a lot of us are in the production space, the content creator space, but how many of us actually know there are chances to work and produce content with Jamaican filmmakers, with Canadian filmmakers. There are many treaties that exist, but most of us don't engage with them because we don't have the information. So the purpose of today is to share that information and to test if there's appetite for cross-continental collaboration, and then to test if there's money from South Africa to fund cross-continental collaboration. So as I said, my name is Wendy Parkies. I'm an African and Black content enthusiast. I love our culture, I love our content, but I love also international Black content. I'll ask all of you to introduce yourselves very briefly, then we'll go into questions. I'll start with you.
All right, good afternoon. My name is Karisho Vapela. I'm a senior deal maker with the Industrial Development Corporation. We finance film and television.
Okay.
I am Jacqueline Jackson. I'm the Film Commissioner for Jamaica. I brought a delegation here of creatives, and I think that's how I want to do my introduction. I'd want all of my creatives here to stand up and say what their name and title are.
Tanya Batson-Savage, writer and producer.
Joel Time, locations manager, producer.
Locations manager and producer, you said, okay?
Horeen Henry, producer and exec producer.
Hi, Cecilia Nixon, writer, director, producer.
Greetings, Michael. Michael Kushner, writer, director. Thank you.
Awesome sauce.
Good morning, Orville Matheson, producer, director, CEO of my production company. Thank you.
Wentworth Kelly, cinematographer and post-production specialist.
Post-production specialist. Okay, anyone else? No. Hey, it's a real delegation. My goodness, who else?
Okay.
This
This is my introduction, guys. This is my introduction. My introduction is my people.
Yeah, hi, I am Kevin Jackson. I work at the Film Commission and I'm a writer and director of live action and animation.
Okay, brilliant. Are you guys done?
Yeah.
Okay, awesome sauce.
We're done now.
Done now, also. Can we please move to your introduction?
Yes, my name is Nthabeleng Phora from the Gauteng Film Commission.
From the Gauteng Film Commission.
Yes.
Awesome. Floyd?
Can you hear me? Okay. I'm Floyd Kane. I'm a writer, producer, showrunner from Canada. My company is called Freddie Films. I've spent the last 10 years producing, probably around 7 movies. And I have a TV series that we just wrapped called Digstown, which we shot for 4 seasons.
Yeah. Okay, brilliant. Thank you so much to everyone. And thank you to the delegation that came.
The Jamaica delegation.
The proper delegation. So this conversation was actually birthed out of a conversation that we had in Canada around Black content and how Black content moves. But my contribution was, I'm not a filmmaker, I'm not a producer. So such opportunities actually won't really translate into tangible cross-continental productions. So we brought them to South Africa to say, if Jamaica and Canada are saying they want to work with South African creatives, bring them here, let's have those conversations, let's have those meetings, let's start potentially producing that content, but also South Africa needs to come to the party with the money. Needs to come to the party. We'll get there, we'll get to the money, So I think how we'll start this is I'm gonna ask a few questions. We have burning questions, but everyone wants to ask later, we'll ask. These are my burning questions. So I'll start with you, Jackie. Obviously, there are stories that are unique to Africa. There are stories that are unique to South Africa. But we can't talk about African stories without including the diaspora. Because we have Africans in Jamaica, we have Africans in Canada, we have Africans in America, Africans in Britain. So when we talk about African stories, including Jamaica, what unique perspective do you think Jamaicans can bring to the framework of African storytelling?
When I think about just African stories and Jamaican stories, I think they are synonymous. I think because we own Africa as home, it is Mama Africa for us. It is our motherland. You know, just history tells us that this is where we're from. So I think it's interesting to me when we had those conversations in Toronto, how we haven't been collaborating.
Yeah.
When I think about it, Jamaica's never been to South Africa. We've never brought a delegation. We don't have people writing, together, producing together, directing together. And it doesn't mean that South Africans have to come to Jamaica, which I want, or that Jamaicans have to come, to South Africa to work. We're in, 21st century. This is something that we can do together, virtually. The collaboration sometimes is as simple as it is. A phone call, somebody recommending somebody for a job. I'm talking about screen-based, so it's not just film. We're talking about animation that we can collaborate with and talk about how we see ourselves. We're Black people. We all have different accents. But then if you think about like just COVID and the numbers that went up in streaming, it is very, very clear that people want to learn about other cultures.
Yes.
So I think there is an opportunity, there is the challenge of the financing and the fact that I have 3 million people, but that is why I'm here, is to say, I have 3 million people, but my culture is probably 5 billion strong.
Yeah.
So that's how I want us to collaborate. And sometimes I love talking to government. I work for government, but I also think as creatives, the individuals that are creating the content, sometimes take the onus and the responsibility for it, to do agreements. It doesn't have to be treaties. Treaties take forever. Right? The agreements are there. Try to do the research. Connect with those who look, sound like you, and those who don't too. But there's so much room for that sort of collaboration and work. Our
100%.
Stories are so similar.
Yeah.
Our landscapes are almost similar. Of course, you have, more land, more people, etc. But just our history is so similar, and just writing is easy.
Yeah.
Food, the tongue, the dance, the music. Don't get me started. It's the sameness.
It's the same, yeah.
So for me, I'm just like so happy to be here. I feel at home. I know I said that yesterday on another panel that I'm on, but it's kind of surprising to me how we haven't, Jamaicans haven't been working together with South Africans a little bit more.
Wow, okay.
And we had this conversation in Berlin earlier. I was like, fund some of my projects.
Well, fund as many projects as possible.
Exactly.
But
exactly.
we'll get to you.
Yeah,
We'll get to you. So, Floyd, can I extend the same question to you? Obviously, South Africa has a production treaty with Canada. So, first question to you, as a filmmaker, you've been in the space. How many productions have you done with South Africans? If you haven't, can I ask why haven't you taken, the chance to work within that treaty? And then third question would be, do you think there's scope for that partnership?
First of all, I agree a lot with a lot of what Jackie is saying in terms of, we don't see ourselves.
Yeah, a little bit, yeah.
Yeah, just a bit louder, yeah. Or closer.
The tape came off.
Yeah.
We,
Falling apart a little.
thank
See?
you.
Collaboration. This is what collaboration looks
Collaboration,
I love it.
yeah.
We don't, I feel like there are a couple things, right? I mean, one
Collaborate.
is we're dealing with a situation where, where like there's distance, right? Geographically, there's distance. There's also, I think we all experience this where we want to be able to tell our stories, and our stories are somewhat even though the themes are similar, our stories are localized, right? So that becomes part of the challenge when we're thinking, like creatively, when we're thinking about, okay, how do I tell this story? Where do I place myself within the global story, right? And I was thinking about this morning. It's like, what, like, our stories, like a Black Canadian coming to Africa. Well, okay, that's a homecoming story, right? That's a fish out of water story, right? It's a love story. Like it can be all of those tropes. I think in terms of the question about, like, I've tried throughout the course of my career to co-produce with South Africa, and in my old life as a lawyer, we did a co-production with South Africa when we were shooting a sci-fi series years ago. And so one of the things that has happened is that, sometimes it's just the money, the creative is there, but the money doesn't work, right? Like we were going to do a movie about the Rwandan genocide, and we were going to shoot it here in Cape Town, and we just couldn't get the money to work. So we actually went to Rwanda and shot it there without a treaty, just using the Canadian rules around 25%. 25% of your costs can be spent outside of, can be non-Canadian costs. And then last year, or a year and a half ago, we went to Nigeria to shoot a movie in Lagos. And I mean, once again, there's no treaty between Canada and Nigeria, so you end up in a situation where you're just going there because the creative demands it. So yeah, I mean, I am, one of the reasons I'm here is that I'm very interested in figuring out how do we make shows together, you know, that are organic co-productions that are being driven by creative as opposed to the money.
Yep.
Okay.
Agreed.
But the money is also very important. Money is very important.
But
let's be
sometimes,
honest.
Wendy, the money, if we only look at the money, it holds us back. We have to take a chance on some of the creatives. The space is there, the audience is there, and then you use that and you balance it out, and then you go pitch for the money.
100%. Can I please come to the Gauteng Film Commission?
Yes.
So around this conversation, firstly, the creators that come to you, are you finding that there's a lot of conversations or a lot of hunger or interest around doing cross-continental storytelling? Do you think as South African filmmakers, they want to do partnerships with other creators from across the world?
South Africans are already creating work in Africa, for instance, but I suppose it's not always been spoken about, or it's not always on the papers for people to see. But you know, when filmmakers do their work, they do their work because they also have some certain NDA that they obviously need not to disclose. But I think when it comes to the issue of treaties and people doing work cross-continental, the one thing that I have seen being a challenge, and that is obviously also disadvantaging a lot of filmmakers from also accessing the opportunities which all these treaties are giving us, is the issue that we do not have a full workshop of the treaties to understand what are the treaties about and what exactly do we have to get and benefit from them. And I think that the less knowledge we have about the treaties and the benefits thereof, people just think that there is no opportunities whilst they are there. And I think that's the one thing that we were speaking with my Canadian counterparts last night, to say, yes, the treaties may be there, but nobody's talking about the treaty being signed and funds being allocated to the treaty, so that when filmmakers request to use the treaty, then there is already money that is being stashed somewhere to assist. Because after the treaty is signed, a filmmaker still has to go through all the applications and all the organizations which are funding to then access the funds. But it still also takes time. So we're signing the treaties, but we are not allocating and preserving money for the treaty. And I think that for me becomes then a disjuncture, because of then we are saying something and we are doing something.
Agreed.
You know, so even we had a really long debate to say even the treaty which was signed yesterday, how many of us will know about it fully? In the next 2 months, so that once the energy is still high and we are all still fresh in the conversations we've had this weekend, we can just make them effect, because of then we would have been understanding the treaty and how soon and how effective is it. So those are some of the conversations I think we need to be honest with ourselves. We need to understand, and we need to know where will the money for these treaties to support the co-production and the cross collaborations we are talking about to be in effect. Because the money becomes a factor, and policies as well, because of then even the same policies then they also tried in many cases also they restrict.
And
it's
then
almost a deterrent.
Can I ask you? So as the Gauteng Film Commission, where outside of you, or including you, who should be educating filmmakers about these treaties? Whose job is it?
I think it's our job as the film agencies, and it should not be only the responsibility of the NVF, because of then they are heading it. But I think as film agencies, we can be shared with the copy of all the treaties, so that in our spaces, because of we are attracting different filmmakers at different forms and different levels,
Yes.
it should be our responsibility as a collective to then be able to freely and comfortably share the treaties to everybody that would request for them.
Yeah.
So that, people that I'm solely focused on Gauteng and the Gauteng filmmakers, but they should not be getting more information more than the people that are in Western Cape or in Kimberley or wherever else. So I think it's the responsibility of all the agencies that really must have the conversation around having the treaties and being able to spread them around.
Okay, the South African filmmakers in the room, how many of you have actually participated in a treaty, a cross-continental production treaty?
Audiovisual treaty.
One.
One.
Okay? You've
Attempting.
attempted, but you knew of it. Okay, so we have one there and an attempt. I mean, in a room this size,
Yeah.
that's a discouraging number, but it's okay. I'm encouraged by your answer.
Yes.
Then it means now that the conversations will start.
Yeah.
The information will be shared. I think even down to like film schools.
Yes.
Even if they're not like fully distributing right now, just get the information to them, and I'm sure we'll get more engagements. I'll come to you. So there was a little snickle and giggle on this side when we talked about the money. so I'll ask firstly, thinking of, let's say in the past 5 years, how many cross-continental projects have been funded by the IDC versus how many applications have you received? Because maybe it's also the applications. So can we unpack that?
Okay, thank you. I think maybe let me start by talking to the question of why cross-continental collaboration is important
Yeah.
from a bankability point of view. Is that when you start collaborating with other continents, you're opening up markets as well.
Yeah.
So, and then it assists you to create a certain budget of productions. Because to recoup just in South Africa only, you can only do so much. And our stories, if there's no collaboration with other continents, don't really travel as much. So it
Yeah.
becomes too local. And we can't really achieve things such as cultural affinity by being able to collaborate with other continents. So from an IDC point of view, we are open to collaborations. They usually refer to them as co-productions.
Yeah.
The most successful one we've done in the past 5 years was Around the World in 80 Days,
Yeah.
Yeah.
which was, I think, three continents.
Yes, came together.
Yeah, getting involved in it, and it performed very well financially as well. So there's a greater appetite,
Yeah.
because if you are able to put in a significant amount of money in a project like that, and you see that skills are coming from across the globe to put something together, and you don't lose money at the end. So it
Yes.
makes the business case for it. Currently, we're looking at a few co-productions. I think in a year, we pretty much receive around 5 or 6 applications of mainly series, though.
Oh.
We haven't had too many feature films recently. I mean, we had big ones historically. Things like Vehicle 19, which also performed extremely
Yeah,
well because there were co-productions between South Africa and other countries. And I think as much as the treaties are there to facilitate official relationships, we're not really bogged down on the treaties. We just look at business arrangements because our primary aim is to follow the money. And we need to know who's who, where, who's getting paid first,
Yeah.
and how we're getting paid. So there's a very strong appetite for cross-country collaboration, and I'm glad that you could bring the delegation from Jamaica. We've been waiting for so long. And we're hoping to see more
Yeah.
of this coming through. And also, we're not too rigid in how we approach things. We really speak to the solution that's required
Yeah.
to make sure that trade happens. So we're very flexible.
Awesome. Jackie, can I ask you? So if there's we're saying there's a hunger for the co-production,
Yeah.
but is there an audience in your mind? If we were to export a lot of African stories, South African movies and series, would there be a tangible audience in Jamaica for these stories?
I think there is, and I think the gap that we've seen in probably the last 100 years
Yeah.
is that we have predominantly been watching North American films. That's what I see on my television stations.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
I have 2 local stations. We have not been cultured to look at ourselves and respect that. And that's something they're probably going to love or hate about me, but I'm
Yeah.
going to call it out.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
we have to put our stories on the screen. I shouldn't be coming here just saying, "Oh, I want your audience," I should be saying my audience is there too.
Yeah.
But unfortunately, that's something that I have to change, and it's going to take some time. You know,
Yeah.
that's behavior change.
Yeah.
It's a part of being brainwashed to think that if you look a particular way, you know, you're better.
Yeah.
So that will take time.
Yeah.
But I believe, what I can say, for example, generation is huge in Jamaica.
Yes.
Huge in Jamaica.
I
it's,
know.
it's probably
It's huge in the
Generations,
river.
yeah.
Actually, it's huge in Jamaica. And I was
it's
gonna say,
huge in Jamaica.
It's-
Like
it's a
it's in
problem
every
that people don't
single
know. Yes.
household. People don't know that.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
we absolutely we watch more South African content than we do Jamaican content. Yes or no, Jamaicans?
yes.
Oh, wow.
So
Brilliant.
so
Yeah.
that's the answer to that question.
Yeah. And in Canada, can I ask the same question around the appetite from viewers?
I think it's different. To me, it's like we're right next door to the U.S., right? So we see their content all the time.
Exactly.
But what I would say is I think the way that television is evolving because of the streamers, right?
Yeah.
We have access to film and TV from around the world, right? In the language
Yeah.
that it was made in, right? And people are more like, I mean, there was an article about this like several months ago. You know, young people watch TV with the subtitles on, even if they're watching an English language show. So it's not foreign anymore to sit and watch people speak in a different language on your television. I think the thing that I always think about is that it comes down, like,
Yeah.
the main thing that decides whether or not someone is going to watch a TV show or a film is cast. Is there somebody in that film who you recognize, right? And more what you're seeing is producers and creators are putting, you know, they'll take somebody like, you know, David Oyelowo, and like, let's say we'll put him in a show that's set in South Africa,
Yeah.
in Cape Town, and I'll watch that show as a North American because, well, I'm plugging into him, right? But then once I start watching it, all of the other South African actors
Yeah.
who are on the canvas, I'm now getting to know who they are and getting to know their talents. And so the next time that I see that actor on a show, I'm going to gravitate towards that. So I think that's the thing that we have to, like, in terms of how we can broaden the appeal. It's like figuring out, like, how do we get that linchpin person
Yeah.
who's going to, like, be our guide into the world?
I mean, I don't necessarily agree,
Yeah,
but
it's fine.
that's an option as well.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think that good content can sell itself.
Yeah,
I don't necessarily think that you have to. No, remember now. We're all trying to figure it out.
no,
right?
I agree with you, and I think
Yeah.
we've seen that through things like Squid Game.
Exactly.
But it's like we also it's not a one-prong approach.
Yeah. Agreed.
Yeah.
Agreed.
Okay. No, I was gonna come to that as well to say, if in South Africa that is a big star for us,
Yeah.
in Canada that he or she may not also be as big a star.
Right.
So maybe around there's a way to merge a good story that is well produced, that is well marketed, and then also whether or not it has a big star, try get it to travel. But now I want to move a bit away from the story and go to opportunities for crews in the space, directors, producers, set designers, hairstylists, wardrobe, all of that. So when we're talking about cross production, we're talking about your story possibly being made with the Jamaican assistance, Canadian, Nigerian, whatever it is. But are there any conversations around you have to use South African crew for certain things, you have to use South African cast for certain things, because I'm sure there has to be a way for our behind-the-scenes team to also get as much opportunity to work on those international films as possible. Can you touch on that?
Yes, I think for every country that funds a particular project, they would have some certain percentage of their requirements where money must be spent within their country. And in South Africa, and particularly from our view, is that if you are getting money maybe from the Gauteng Film Commission, some of the things that would like for you to do as a filmmaker is either to use our locations as the preferred destination of choice. If you do not use our locations fully, you can still use our post-production. You'll still do your R&D in Gauteng. You will still have some form of employment, because at the end of the day, for us, we view film as a job creator. We use it as a contributor to the GDP. We use it as a way to promote locations as being the best destination of choice. And this is, I speak also on behalf of my colleagues in the KZN, as well as in Cape Town.
Yeah.
And also, we also pride ourselves, I think, as South Africans, that it's cheaper to make your films in South Africa, particularly when you're bringing your dollars and your pounds, because of then you get more for less. And we also already have the infrastructure, we have the studios, we have the talent, we have the incentives, which are also being provided by our sister agents, which is the DTIC.
Yeah.
So making films in South Africa is actually much cheaper, and we really would like to welcome a lot of people that would wish to have and produce their films in South Africa, because of then it makes it lesser. You know, if you can imagine, $1 is like 19 rand. So if you really divide that, so you get more for less.
Yeah.
And I think that's really where we want to push our energy to ensuring that we are attracting foreign direct investment. And you know what, you can never go wrong with us, with the weather, with 2 oceans.
Yeah.
In the same country, we have a forest in the Eastern Cape. You know, you can convert our locations to anything that you'd like. You know, you can even do your sci-fi films in South Africa. So we really are rich in terms of our locations. We are rich in how you can just convert anything to what you want. So we've got it all.
100%.
Yeah.
And then I asked her the question around who plays the role in letting producers know around treaties. But I'll come to you as well. Around the IDC, do you believe that there is a job for your organization to play in educating filmmakers and producers of the various opportunities that exist outside of just only producing in South Africa? Is there a role for your organization to play?
Most certainly. I think because we're a government agency, so our mandate is not pure commercial. So we have a very strong developmental mandate.
Yeah.
And that's the reason why we come to festivals to exhibit, bring as many of our colleagues as possible, so we can share the information. But we've received some input as well around why wait for festivals to spread the message? Why don't you create a continuous process where people can access the information, you can be in their faces and be able to engage continuously? We are working on those models. Number one, to educate people about our processes, and also to educate people about the business of film, but also to promote the country as well, globally, to say that we need collaborations like this with North America and other sectors. And money is not a problem in South Africa.
Did you guys hear that? Money is not a problem in South Africa. Are we recording? Are we recording? We're recording.
So, but people never get to know.
Yeah.
And also, how do we work around being approachable as a bank?
Yeah.
Effectively, to say, how do we make ourselves accessible?
Yeah.
How do we make sure our language speaks to a creative?
Yes.
Because I think half of the work is communication. And if we don't communicate our plans properly, if we don't communicate our opportunities, then people never know what's happening. But one thing we like about the sector is that being a funder, you can dictate where the money is spent.
Yeah.
And this is the part where we are very clear that most of the money must be spent in South Africa. So that, especially because we offer more than just money, we offer a great environment for filmmaking. But also, we believe in skills transfer. If we need to empower our colleagues in Jamaica, that's what we are willing to do. We have that capacity as a state to also improve other industries. So we're not always going out there to be upskilled. Because, I mean, most of the conversation is around people are coming here to make us better. But I think even between ourselves, we can improve each other.
Absolutely.
Because we have different skills, we've got different experiences, and for us, we definitely have the balance sheet.
Definitely have the balance sheet. Oh, I'm loving it. Oh, I'm loving it. Jackie, can I come to you?
Yes.
So you recently /not so recently, had an open call for proposals. So your proposals, I'm assuming, would have been for Jamaican filmmakers. But at some point, as we begin to work and more together, would you ever get to a stage where you're doing an open call for proposals and we can include African storytellers? Are we getting there?
Yes, I think for the Jamaica Screen Development Initiative is for Jamaicans. So, and the diaspora. So, you know, Jamaicans living in the UK, South Africa, etc. Once you have a passport or a birth certificate, you could apply, right? But the other thing that I was when we're talking about it, I was very clear to say, if you want to benefit from that, you can just co-produce with a Jamaican producer. If you think there is an alignment there, you know, you reach out to one of the producers on the ground and he said, I have a story, I'd like to co-produce with you. And you're going together. And this is one of the things that, I'm happy that you asked that question. But then we just have to take, I mean, it's not a lot of money most of the times. It's, you know, you start with the seed fund, right? The development money. And then you move from there because money talks to money. So you have a portion of the film and then you come to South Africa, you ask for that money, you collaborate with Floyd in Canada, right? You have Tristan there in Canada as well. So, I mean, it's just one step at a time. And I think it is open. We just have to have the conversation with each other.
Floyd, can I ask for producers who can't make it to festivals like MIP, festivals like BSO, they can't afford to travel or they don't know about the festivals. How do you recommend a producer on the streets who's very talented, doesn't have access like this for markets? How does he get in touch with a producer in Canada to say, can I collaborate? How does he get in touch with a producer in America? How do you go about that?
I mean, everyone's different. Once again, so I mean, for me, it's very simple. You just need to email me. My email's out there on the internet. And typically, like, you know, I'll respond directly because there's no real barrier, right? It's like ideas are ideas. And the way that I tend to work is like I'm a writer first. So if I'm talking to another creative or somebody sends me something and it sparks for me, then we're going to engage. And then you have to get into the practical part of it, which, I mean, like Jackie is saying, it's like, you know, the way the subsidies are set up in each country is that, you know, Canadian subsidies and funds are for Canadians, right? And so that makes it, so for me, the big issue, even before you get to production, is development, right? Because I would love nothing better than to have a writing room and we can do it because everything's over Zoom now. Have a writing room where you have writers from South Africa, from Jamaica, Canada, all collaborating on one series. The issue is how do you get the money to talk? Because what happens is that as a Canadian writer, I'm being paid in Canadian dollars, right? And the way that we work with our guild is that, well, whatever the Canadian writer's being paid, the other writers get paid equally. But because of the currency difference, that means that we need the South African parties have to put in more money, and the Jamaican parties have to put in more money. And so until everybody is kind of like, to me, one of the key obstacles in actually us all working together is the creative, being able to build that creative that we all kind of are a part of organically. That's the key, right? And if we can do that, and a key part of that is having access to development funds in each country. Like, I actually don't know why Canada and South Africa have not come together and said, let's create a development fund, like, because there is like a program where they collaborate, where it's like it's a competition, right? But to actually have an ongoing development fund that if producers and creatives want to work together, like, we can access, it would just make it so much easier for us to actually end up doing productions, you know, and that way, like, that would encourage more collaboration, I think.
You know, I think just to add on what he's saying, I think the other issue is trust. Because if on your question, if nobody has been to this festival, how do you trust that this person you're speaking to is actually a filmmaker?
Right.
And how do you trust that the person that you're trying to make something with can actually deliver the end of what they have to do? And I suppose this is the reason why then the festivals become that space where you're able to engage with a person that you can trust and you can see and you know, and you can then follow the conversations later. Because at the rate at which cybercrime is happening, at the rate at which there's just no uncertainty in online confirmations of business. It then makes it impossible for the person that has never been to a film festival to then identify a person, because how do you also identify the right person? And I say this because I know, like a lot of my colleagues which I've worked with, they receive a lot of emails from people, but sometimes it's and I'm sorry to say, this is just nonsense, right? And how really do you really know? Because then you need to get to a point where you are comfortable to say, at the rate at which I'm making my films, I am matching a person that will make me either greater or I will learn from, or whatever that we are trying to produce will make each other happy from both ends of the party, particularly from the responsibilities of our countries. So it becomes very tricky. If you do not go to networking sessions, you do not understand the industry, you do not know who is looking for what, because of then, how do you know if you're meeting their requirements?
Which is very good point. Really good point. Which is why I brought a delegation, by the way, because it helps to close some of the gaps. They get to see for themselves, see what distributors, what buyers, what content or different persons are looking for, what producers are interested in collaborating with them. But then another part of our job, right, is to collate the data and to present almost like a report for those who can't be here, which is something that we are going to be doing, which has to happen because I can't take all my creatives. I don't know how I'm going to pay for their food tonight. No, but you know what I mean. Like so for us, it's doing like a mission report. Saying, all right, we would have met with this person, we had this conversation with this buyer. It is important for you to know that you have to have a slate of projects. These are the things that they're looking for, so that they're aware of that. So now I'm going to go back to Jamaica with that information. It's about us not also gatekeeping, is opening the door so that the younger creatives, I can't take my young university creatives, I can't, because I need to bring persons here who have a slate of projects in development, etc., so they can have those conversations and not waste Floyd's time, you know what I mean? But can get to that level and know to prepare to get there. So it's opening that door. They can't get here, having that database to say, okay, these are the persons we met with, these are the things that you need to have, and these are the pre-requirements.
So then on that, I'm going to pose again Film Commission and IDC. So because I still believe in the points of not every local producer can afford to come to festivals and markets, right? Because you have to think of accommodation and food and transport, all of that. So to Jackie's point, would there ever be scope for some kind of, I'll use your word, a database to be formulated? And that database, the name only gets on there if it's obviously a vetted person, a vetted organization, a vetted producer, a vetted writer, director, whatever. Anyone that has voiced a hunger to do co-productions between South Africa, whatever countries. So my question is, between the organizations, would there be scope, and does it exist, some kind of vetted database?
It does, from the Gauteng Film Commission. So we do have what we call the one-stop shop. And, the one-stop shop is there with talent that we have, with infrastructure and services that we have. But also the problem that I always have with it is that we cannot guarantee the relationships from a person that finds a Nthabeleng in the one-stop shop to say then Nthabeleng will still can live up to what you request as a collaborator, because it's also their choice. Right? And it's also depending on, are they producing the kind of content or a genre that you seek, in as much as there could be a best identified person in terms of their profile, but they can equally say, no, I'm not interested. 100%. So you can have the database there, but you cannot guarantee, because of it's individual's responsibility, it's individual risk that anybody has to take. So it's there, but it's not that. Also, it's not the organization's responsibility to say, yes, you must help this person, because it also comes to what they believe in, what they are trying to produce, and how they also profile themselves, and what they seek to achieve, and how they seek to be seen in the world. So yes, we do have a one-stop database where we are providing our talent, our infrastructure, our services, studios, all the services that we provide in
Can you
Gauteng. So we do have that.
Answer the same question?
On our side, we don't have a database, but we do a detailed due diligence on everyone. Because of Protection of Information Act, so it's quite difficult to give people access to say this is the right person, that's the wrong person. But also I'll encourage the filmmakers to be in the habit of doing their own due diligence. When you're dealing with people, like get certain basic information in order so that you know that you are dealing with legitimate people. The nice thing about getting funding from IDC is that we do that process quite intensely. At least you'll know that the business partners you are with are actually legitimate. So, but that, if it wasn't for protection of personal information, maybe we could probably just cut information. Unfortunately, on our side, we have to keep information private.
100%. Okay, thank you so much. I'm going to open the floor to, any questions? Okay, we'll start there.
And the question is really to IDC primarily, because IDC said that the balance is balancing.
The balance sheet is balance sheeting.
So the question would be, one of the things that you encourage, or is really a requirement that I know of, because I just had a meeting in the morning, is that pre-sale is a big thing for you. And we want to get our product pre-sold, but I have spoken to different producers, and it's very, very murky what the differences are between a license, a pre-sale, and a commission. And it's like you try to have conversations with other producers because you're going to be co-producing, and you hear that it's as crystal clear as get a pre-sale. It doesn't even have to be that they actually pay for the pre-sale. It's just an agreement that you need, which sounds really easy, but then when you're communicating with other producers, there's a misunderstanding of what a pre-sale really is, and yet that's a critical component of how and how you give your loans. That's one to you. And the second one is, do you have and should you have a database of the markets and an analysis of the actual markets that, in your experience of funding or loaning certain films, these markets have actually yielded more revenue on investment? Because in a sense, and I'm not saying we're going to start making films based on those markets, but at least to have that in the back of our mind as we create, produce content, we can have a sense of, oh, Nigeria is a really good exhibitor and they have a good history of giving back, or China or Korea. In my case, I'd love to do Korea, but I have no idea, how that would work. So if IDC has the experience of successes in certain markets, it'd be good to have an analysis of that data.
Yeah, good questions, Do you want to take them?
Should I respond now?
Yeah.
Okay, on the first one, it speaks to the initiatives that we are starting now around education. That sometimes we use terminology, but it comes down to the substance of what you're signing. But there is a clear distinction between licensing your content and commissioning it. The format that licensing takes could take different formats, but the commissioning, the bottom line is that you don't own the content. So we are very clear, if you don't own the content, we can't finance you, because you are taking a risk on an asset that you're never going to own. So now the semantics around the licenses, whether you get it before you produce, while you produce, whether you get paid in advance, you get paid on delivery, it's all the details that I think is part of the education process. We can go through it. But the bottom line is, when you license, the idea of a pre-sale is somebody commits before you even start producing, so that we know somebody's going to buy. Then the mechanics of the cash flow is a separate issue.
Yeah, it's fine. Yeah.
With the pre-sale, which I've always understood to be a pre-sale of the license. And her understanding was, no, a pre-sale is not a license sale. A pre-sale is between a license and a commission. It's them giving you towards your budget, a certain percentage of your budget, because at the end, and I just couldn't work that around to go, no, it's a pre-sale of the license. If your license is 100,000, you agree that they will pay you 100,000. They may not pay you up front or in the middle or at the end, but they will agree to pay that, and that's a pre-sale. And her understanding was it's not a pre-sale of the license, it's a contribution to the budget. So I really need, please, for you to clear that, because it's a very murky.
Okay, I'm not sure how much time we have because I might have to do a master class
I was gonna say, I was gonna say, can this be offline? Can it be offline? And then maybe the education job is to actually share it after. Guys, in clear terms, this is a pre-sale, this is a commission, this is a license, but definitely offline. Tristan, can we come to you?
Oh, there was the other question around markets that are
yes,
performing.
yes, you can answer.
Currently, we don't have an extensive database because we generally deal with sales agents who give you a view of how territories are going to perform. But it's good input. I think I've got some of my post-investment guys here. They can do that collation and actually say, our content tends to sell in these territories. These territories we get more money than the other territories, but that's a very good input.
And then publish that information.
Yeah.
Definitely. Okay, we can go?
They're at the back there. I think they're listening.
Yeah, so I had one question, but it was based off of the comments in terms of markets, right? So yes, it's important to go to markets. I think in the last 3 or 4 years, I've been to several different markets. This is my first time in South Africa for this market. And I can say as a emerging producer, it does wonders in terms of building your network. But there's a barrier because it costs a lot of money, right? In Canada, we're fortunate because we get a lot of organizations that will sponsor us and send us. But again, it's a very small, select group of people, and oftentimes that pool, is not a lot of black producers. And so one of the things I found that was helpful was a few months ago, I went to a cross-continental forum with just West Indian, African, UK producers that were all black. And I found that was a lot more valuable because they were able to break down things like why it was important to have the treaties, how the treaties work, why we need to work together, even if our countries don't necessarily have treaties. And it's also opened up my network. So now I'm here and I'm connected with producers that I met there that are from South Africa that connected me with other people here. But I think if you come into a market like this just cold, it's harder to build that trust and that connection, and you have to come multiple times to see any sort of benefit, which means thousands of dollars, right? So I think my question is there any way to create pathways because there is obviously a distinction between emerging producers, mid-career, and established, right? How do we level up to those different plateaus, and what are the governments or the organizational structures doing to create those pathways?
Do you want to take that, Nthabeleng?
Yes, with the Gauteng Film Commission presently, we actually do categorize our funding in tiers, which obviously the tier 1 is the professionals, the tier 2 is the intermediaries, and tier 3 is the new entrants. And we ensure that also when we look into our stages in our support, we looked at the person's tier and we ensure that we merge them with the tier that they are collaborating with. We've got a lady by the name of Khodisamang, who is an intermediate, but she's a tier 2, who is now collaborating with Nigeria and with Ghana on a documentary called Women in Sex. So with her, we give her the support that is within her level of production, which also then she's getting assistance and funding from a counter producer in Ghana and a counter producer in Nigeria. So we do have that in space in South Africa, as well as the NAVF, as well as the KZN Film Commission. We have our films that are labeled in tiers, so that for each tier it has its own amount of money and amount of support, because of then for our high end we obviously give them a lot of money, and also that assists our high-end film agencies like the IDC and the DTI to then benchmark on how they also can assist the different tiers within the industry.
Okay,
we already
thanks.
have that.
We only have time for like one quick question.
Thank you. It's not a question. I just want to add to the question that you asked about the Canada Treaty. Just on behalf of our South African panelists, there is that Canada Treaty is actually one of the most active treaty that we have in the country, followed by the French. And I think it's just been revised now to include television and series.
Mostly they're
but
just TV. I mean, feature.
Yeah, but treaties are a framework really that provides, how filmmakers can, carve their relationships. And so there might not be a certain amount of money that is set aside for the treaty, but the activity within the filmmakers and the practitioners, as they go along, the money is available for co-production.
Yeah.
And that's what it has been with the Canada Treaty.
Okay, brilliant. Are you going to be super quick? Like 1 second. Okay, 1 second.
Hi, so real quick, I just want to ask the Film Commission for Gauteng, what can you tell our Film Commission to go back home, because we have neo-colonial remnants in the Caribbean as it relates to our broadcasters. We're here, and I'm looking around and seeing a lot of broadcasters and streaming platforms that are buying content. I'm a TV producer in Jamaica, and we've been producing TV shows for many years, and we have to be paying the broadcasters to get the content aired. What can we do at that level to get the policy changed back in Jamaica and the Caribbean so that we can change that and now start getting the broadcasters to be paying the filmmakers for the content? Because we have to be paying the broadcasters to get the content, and even when we pay them, they still get the ad sales in between the program. So there's no revenue share with producers, with broadcasters, which is really, it don't make any sense.
Yeah. I mean, that's a very deep point.
So simply put, the model in Jamaica. I have a
Yeah.
TV show also. When I just moved to Jamaica from New York, where I went to school, I came back, created my TV show, and then they're like, okay, this is great. I was like, okay, how are we gonna do this? And they're like, oh, you just pay for the slot. I was like, so I'm paying you to show my content. Yeah, that's the model for TV.
Okay, well, so I think, and
Can we get a
really,
quick point and then we have to close?
Cool. I really do not have, I think, the best answer, but I think you deserve to have like a stakeholder relations with your broadcaster, to then obviously give them the reasons why it's not possible for you to always pay your space to them. But also then maybe you must also look at other countries that are in the same in the same level as Jamaica, so that at least you are matching apples with apples. Because you also don't want to be matching apples with bananas, where you are now saying the distributor and then you are imposing to your broadcaster. Because of then the broadcaster in our end, SABC is a public broadcaster, which really most of the work that they did in the beginning was free content to people, because of then they were perpetuating an agenda to communicate to the South Africans. But different broadcasters have their own view and own purposes.
And it's private. It's private entities. So you really can't tell them
ours
how
it's
to
public,
operate their
it's
model
a public
of TV.
entity. So
Right.
obviously the
That's the
policies and
struggle.
strategies then would change.
My job is
You
to
know.
tell them to just take your content somewhere else.
And my job is to say we are out of time. That is my job. Thank you so much, everyone.